All right, let's dive into something seriously cool today. VnWeb for 800XA.
Okay.
In 800XA, we're all about the data, right? Trends, graphs, alarms, you name it. But wouldn't it be amazing if you could actually see what was happening live, right there in your 800XA environment?
I know, right? It's like you've got all this data,
Exactly.
but then to actually see it.
That's what VnWeb is all about, bringing that live video right into the mix. No more switching between applications, no more like trying to piece things together in your head. Everything you need is right there.
Yeah, it's a game changer. We're going to break it all down for you today, like from the technical side, how it actually works, to what it's like to use it.
And we've got a whole bunch of resources to help us with this. We've got the VnWeb for 800XA User's Guide. That's kind of like our instruction manual for this deep dive.
Right.
And then we've got the VnWeb User Guide itself, which is all about how you actually use the software. And then, for those who want to get their hands a little dirty, we've even got the VnWeb API documentation.
Nice, yeah.
Oh, and we can't forget our Swedish listeners. We've got the end vendor handling for you, too.
Always good to have options, like having multiple camera angles.
Okay, so let's start with the basics here. What exactly is VnWeb, and what do we need to actually make it work?
So at its core, VnWeb is a system extension. It's kind of like, when you install a new app on your phone?
Yeah.
But instead of browsing cat videos, you're monitoring important industrial processes.
Okay, I like that analogy.
So to get started, there are a few things you'll need. First off, you'll need 800XA, version 6.1.0 or later.
All right, so we need to make sure our system is up to date.
Exactly. And then you'll also need a VideoNet system, version 12.4 or later, to be precise.
Okay, so we've got our 800XA, we've got our VideoNet system. What else?
And, of course, you'll need the VideoNet web server extension itself.
Makes sense. So not exactly drag and drop, but it sounds like once we have the foundation in place, it should be pretty straightforward.
Yeah, for sure. Now, there are two main parts to VideoNet Web that we need to wrap our heads around. First up, we've got the VideoNet Web main configuration aspect. This is like mission control for your video feeds.
Okay, so this is where we tell VideoNet Web where to find all those live streams.
Exactly. It's where you define the URLs for all your video servers.
All right, so we're basically pointing VideoNet Web in the right direction.
Yep. And here's a neat little trick. You can actually specify up to 3 different video servers.
Wait, 3? Why 3?
Redundancy. It's all about redundancy. So if one server decides to take a break, the system will automatically switch over to the next one on the list. That way you never lose your video feeds.
Wow, that's smart. Okay, so we've got our video servers all lined up, but how do we actually see the feeds themselves? This is where the VideoNet Web aspect comes in, right?
Exactly. Each VideoNet Web aspect represents a specific live video feed that you want to display in your 800XA graphics.
So if I'm picturing this correctly, the main configuration aspect is like our server directory, and each individual VideoNet Web aspect is like a window that pulls a specific feed from those servers.
That's a great way to think about it. And here's where things get even cooler. Let's say you want to set up a VideoNet Web aspect to monitor a really important pump in your plant.
Okay, walk me through that. Pretend I'm a brand new 800XA user.
All right. So you'd start by creating a new VideoNet Web aspect, and you would give it a name, something like Pump 1 Live Feed, maybe. Then you would link this aspect to that main configuration aspect we talked about. That way it knows where to grab the video stream.
Makes sense so far.
But here's the cool part. Each aspect can actually pull information from your 800XA objects to create what we call dynamic links.
Okay, now hold on a second. Dynamic links. Are you saying I could, click on a pump icon in my 800XA graphic and boom,
Yeah.
live video feed of that exact pump just pops up?
You got it. And the key to this whole thing are those curly braces that you see in the URLs. We call those data accessors, and they let you pull specific data, like a camera ID or a preset position, and plug it right into the video feed URL.
So no more manually typing in camera IDs or anything like that. That is dangerously close to magic.
Pretty close. It's all about making your life easier and giving you that real-time insight.
So those data accessors are pretty slick. They can really open up some possibilities. But I'm betting some folks are wondering how it all works in the real world. Got an example up your sleeve?
You bet. Let's say you've got a camera on your main reactor.
Yeah.
Right. And you want to jump to that live feed whenever you need it. Super easy. So you'd create a VideoNet Web aspect, maybe call it something like Reactor 1 live feed, just to keep things clear.
Okay, makes sense.
Then you link that aspect up to the main configuration aspect, like we talked about. That way it knows where to find the video. And here's the cool part. that aspect, it can actually pull the reactor's ID from your 800XA system.
So it knows exactly which camera is on that reactor. That's slick.
Exactly. You click the reactor icon in your 800XA graphic and bam, live feed from that reactor.
Like magic.
It is kind of like magic. It's all those data accessors working behind the scenes. And that's just the start. They can do even more.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, you can grab preset positions for those fancy PTZ cameras, you know, the ones that pan, tilt, zoom.
Right.
So you click a button and boom, you're looking at a specific view from that camera. You can even pull timestamps for recorded footage, like a super fast search function, no more fiddling around with dates and times.
That is seriously cool. So we're not just watching video here, we're building a whole custom video control system right inside 800XA. What happens if a camera goes offline, though? Or a server decides to take a nap?
Well, that's where the redundancy we talked about really shines. VnWeb is always keeping an eye on your cameras and servers. If something goes down, it just automatically switches to the next available source.
Okay, so no panicking if there's a hiccup. That's reassuring. Speaking of things that are reassuring, let's talk security.
Yeah, that's important. Can't forget about security. It's not just about having cool features. It's about making sure everything is locked down tight, especially in an industrial setting.
Absolutely. What kind of safeguards are we talking about here?
Well, first off, you've got HTTPS and SSL encryption. Anytime you're accessing a live feed or pulling up some recorded footage, it's all happening over a secure connection. Nobody's snooping around your video feeds.
So it's like a digital lock and key for our video streams.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just about protecting the data while it's moving around. VnWeb also ties into your 800XA user management system. That means you can control exactly who sees what.
So we can limit access to certain cameras or footage based on who needs it.
Yeah.
That's huge for security and keeping things running smoothly.
Exactly. And on top of that, you can keep tabs on the status of all your cameras, even get alerts if something goes wrong. Camera stops working, you'll know about it right away, right there in your 800X.
Talk about proactive. That's got to be a relief for anyone worried about downtime. But, we can talk about all these cool features all day, but I think it's important to step back and ask, why should people care? What's the real impact of all this?
Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in the tech stuff, but the real magic is how it changes things in the real world, on the plant floor. Imagine this. You're in the control room, and something starts going haywire with your process. Now, instead of just looking at numbers on a screen, you can pull up the live feed of what's actually happening alongside your 800XA data.
So you're not just guessing, you can actually see what's going on.
Exactly. And that can make all the difference. Instead of spending hours, maybe even days trying to figure out the problem, you've got a visual confirmation of what's happening.
That means quicker fixes, less downtime, maybe even safer operations overall.
Right. And when you combine that with everything else 800XA can do, well, you're giving your operators a powerful set of tools to do their jobs better and more effectively.
This is starting to sound less like a system extension and more like a superpower.
It really is. But let's be real for a second. All this video streaming, especially if we're talking high definition, it's got to eat up bandwidth, right?
That's right. We're talking potentially a lot of data flying across the network. Could bring everything to a screeching halt if we're not careful. So how does VnWeb handle all that? Any tricks up its sleeve?
You're absolutely right. Bandwidth is always something to keep in mind. But the folks who designed VnWeb, they were pretty clever about it. Built in some really smart features to keep those video streams flowing smoothly.
Okay, so spill the beans. What kind of magic are we talking about here?
Well, for starters, they've got support for all sorts of video codecs, including the really efficient ones like H.264 and H.265. Those are all about getting the best video quality out of the smallest amount of data possible.
So we can still get those crisp, clear images without overloading our network.
Exactly. And it gets better. VnWeb also gives you fine-grained control over things like the video resolution and frame rate. You can tweak those settings for each camera individually.
So I could have, say, my critical process cameras running high-res, full frame rate, while maybe those security cameras in the back hallways are dialed back a bit.
Exactly. It's all about finding the right balance for your specific needs and application. And if you don't need that real-time streaming all the time, you can always just grab images on demand or just record the footage for later.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, before we wrap up, I got to ask, we've talked about the efficiency, the safety, all the practical stuff, but does VnWeb have that wow factor? Anything that's just plain cool?
Oh, absolutely. Think about things like remote expert guidance. Let's say you've got a technician out in the field, maybe working on a tricky repair, something they haven't seen before. With VnWeb, they can share their live feed directly with an expert who could be anywhere in the world.
So it's like a live video call, but for troubleshooting industrial equipment.
Exactly. And because it's all tied into 800XA, that expert, they're not just seeing the video, they're also seeing the live process data right alongside it. They can walk that technician through the repair with incredible accuracy.
That's amazing. And it's not just about fixing things faster. It's about sharing knowledge and expertise in real time, no matter where you are.
Absolutely. Think about training new operators, too. They can shadow someone more experienced, see exactly what they see, share their thought processes. It's a whole new way to learn.
This has been eye-opening. We started with this simple idea, right? Integrating video into 800XA. But we ended up diving deep into this technology that could change the game for industrial automation.
It's been a real pleasure exploring this with you. I think the biggest takeaway is that VnWeb is about a lot more than just adding cameras to your control room. It's about getting a clearer picture of what's happening, working together better, and making everything run smoother.
Well said. And to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to explore VnWeb yourselves. You never know what amazing applications you might discover. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.